So welcome everyone. My name is Amir Khan. Um, these are weekly newbie coaching calls. So if you're here and you're a newbie, you're in the right place. All right. So every week we do these calls. These calls are short. They're only 40 minutes. The format is we either do a topic that I choose and then I do a presentation on that. And usually the topic is something to do with slow flips, but it's very fundamental. So if you like to see some of the old recordings, there should be a link in the chat. If you look for it, that's where all the recordings are. Today, we have a guest. So like I said, we do two types of calls. One is where we have a topic that we are discussing, and then we have question and answers at the end. And there's another type of a call where we have a guest. So this call is one of my favorite because where we invite someone and we talk about this. And this within the favorites, this is probably my most favorite because today we have someone who is relatively new and but she's bought her slow flips and she's doing really well. And I always think it's a great idea to learn from people who are just a little bit ahead of you rather than somebody who's way ahead of you. Because if they are further along, like they've got 50, 100 slow flips, they have different problems and issues. They're dealing with scaling issues and a whole bunch of other things. So it's a great idea to learn from someone who's a little bit ahead of you. So today our guest is Holly Brezynski. Did I say your name right, Holly? Unmute yourself, please.
You said it perfectly.
All right, perfect, Holly. So thank you for taking the time to be here and be our guest. I do have some questions for you. After we go through our questions, then we'll open up for questions and answers from the audience. So please don't put your questions in the chat. I can't keep track of it. I'm sorry, I'm just too old. So if you don't mind, just raise your hand. And so after I'm done with the questions, I have about 10 questions that I'm going to ask her. And after that, please raise your hand and we'll go through that. Okay. So Holly, you're ready?
I am. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. First question, when did you join the Freedom Accelerator program?
I joined April 25th, 2024, so only this year, several months ago.
Okay. Well, here's the hard question. Why did you join the FA program?
Well, I got inspired by our friends. I've really been wanting to get into real estate since I was maybe 16 years old. I've been reading about it, watching it. I've, worked on construction projects. But I always felt like I needed to have a lot of capital to be able to get started. And I haven't ever had access to a lot of capital. So I've been watching real estate videos for decades. I'm almost 40. And I had friends who managed to get started and they were about the same level in life as me. And I got curious about how they did it. And we were at one of our, friends' parties and I talked to them and they graciously had a meeting with us and explained how they got started. And I was like, we have to do this. So I started looking at multiple different strategies in bigger pockets, and the algorithm saw that I was doing that and popped up one of Scott's videos. And I bought or rented books and multiple different strategies, and I really liked Scott's strategy. And after reviewing maybe 8 strategies.
So coming into this, what is your background or experience in real estate?
Not much. I have bought 3 houses in my life. So just touring houses locally, and the houses in Missouri where I was looking were kind of similar builds. And before that, I helped build like half a neighborhood when I was like 19 years old as part of a project. So I had a little bit of background, but pretty much nothing in investing, zero.
And then it's incredible, right? And I love when we have guests like that because, we have people who join our calls, and that's one of the things they have a challenge is that, they're listening to these other people who have a lot of real estate experience and they're using a lot of real estate jargon. But it must be hard. So that's why you're here, and that's an excellent. All right. So next question: upon joining the Freedom Accelerator program, what were your biggest challenges?
Uh, so being patient was probably my biggest challenge because I was so motivated by reading the book and watching the videos and seeing people in the group every day who are buying houses and growing and building. You get really, really antsy to get in there and just close your first house. But there's a lot of different levels of houses that are going through. Some of them are in bad shape, and those are okay for people because they have big networks of wholesalers they're working with, or they have the perfect end buyer. And that was not me. And I knew that. So
Mm,
I had to really just wait for the right house to come through. And it took a while. So yeah, being
okay.
patient is important.
Okay. Awesome. So if you were to name three things
Yeah.
that were stopping you from buying your first slow flip, what were they?
Um, I was afraid of spending a lot of money. I was afraid of getting a house that was going to have a lot of issues and never be able to fill it. I was afraid of being in a new group of people that may know a lot more than me, and maybe I would fall behind or make a really big mistake.
Okay. Awesome. All right. So now let's tell us about your first slow flip and how did you find it? How did you fund it? And share some numbers if you like.
Sure. So my first slow flip, I decided we saw a house in the available deals section. I'd also been looking a lot on the MLS and touring houses with my real estate agent, and not finding the right ones or finding a lot of issues, not closing. So I was kind of actively working on a couple of fronts. Um, and so I had made several offers that didn't end up going through for various reasons. And we ended up buying one from Joanne Reed in Missouri. It was a 1 bedroom, 1 bath house, which I knew from talking to other group members don't sell as well. But it was one of like it looked really good in the photos and the walkthrough videos. So because it was one of the nicer looking ones, we went ahead and just thought, well, it's little, and but maybe it'll move. So we went ahead and purchased it through the kind of upselling that goes on in the group. What?
Yeah, how did you fund it?
So we got a HELOC on our primary residence, and we're not planning on selling our primary, but we live in the Pacific Northwest, and the home prices are just skyrocketing. So
Mm,
we were able to get quite a bit of our own funding and borrowing from ourselves. The interest rate was pretty good, about 7, 8, 9%, because it kind of fluctuates on a HELOC. So getting that locked down. And that's one of the things about the slow flip program that was really helpful as well, is that the house numbers really work with a HELOC. Um,
mhm.
we were also looking at rentals beforehand and getting really expensive homes. The interest rate kind of put our numbers upside down. So
Yeah.
this
O-
made the most sense. Yeah.
Okay. And I don't know. You didn't. Would you like to share some numbers of your first slow flip? How much did you buy it for? How much did you put down as earnest money and
So
closing costs?
I kind of ended up having like 4 houses come through quickly. So I'm gonna guess I have like a binder that has it all in there. Like I'm looking
That's
at
okay.
it.
That's fine.
Just in the interest of time, I think we put down um like well, so we secured it with 20. I think it was either 2,000 or 2,500, and then closed on the house. And I think Joanne ended up getting about 2 grand off the top. which was very reasonable. And I don't mind how much our wholesalers make. They work really hard to find these really great deals.
Sure.
So it's almost surprising how little they really bring the prices down for us, which is really lovely.
So sorry, how much was the property? How much did you buy it
Property,
for?
oh, I think this one was, I think it was 37. It was my most expensive
Okay.
one, and it was the smallest one because I
Right.
keep
But
refining my process.
but this is in St. Louis, Missouri, is that
St.
right?
Louis, Missouri. Yeah.
Right. I think I remember that. It was the very, really nice looking one. I do
It,
remember that one. Yeah, I
it
think
was
so.
very, yeah. But it was very tiny. So, um, so 1 bedroom, 1 bath. It did have a basement and 3,700, which I didn't think I could buy houses for that cheap in first place. And there's all these numbers that are going around, and some of the houses are really expensive and look really nice. Some of them are really expensive and look really bad. And so trying to learn about all the different areas and talking to lots
Mm,
of agents and people in the group to try to figure out what's kind of a reasonable thing, and using PropStream and everything. It's been really
right.
helpful.
Perfect. Okay. Now, who filled your property and how long did it take you to fill this property?
So this property was quite a ride because the house next door, right after we closed on it, there was a big rainstorm and the house next door collapsed
Ooh.
into my property's yard. My poor husband, who I talked into doing this, I'm like, let's do this, was like, what's happening? He was absolutely panicked. And it's lovely because our group has seen everything, so they're really helpful. So I messaged Joanne, and she had someone who could like come over and like give me a quote on getting things picked up. And I also posted a picture in the group on, look what happened. What do you suggest I do here? Like, should I try to keep selling it, or what do I do? And so I did end up having someone come by and remove, like, a wall had fallen in, and it was about $700. He removed the wall, but then the house next door was really ugly. So another wonderful group member, Tatiana, she's a local real estate agent in the St. Louis, Missouri area. She did another walkthrough with me to look at the damage and take pictures out the window so I could see what was going on and kind of get the full run on the house. And yeah, it was bad.
So that's interesting. So even though that's not one of the questions that I was going to ask you, but
Yeah,
because of this experience, I do want you to share this because I think this is very important because it's that fear of what if something goes wrong, and when
yeah.
something does go wrong, how do you cope with it? What did you do, and what was your reaction, and how did you overcome this?
Yeah, well, I was pretty motivated seeing some of the other things that had gone in the group, and I read a lot of posts in the group, and I'd seen other things happen to people where like roofs had gone bad, like they had people break in afterwards, and so I'd seen that people were able to overcome and still move the houses, and that gave me a lot of hope. So um, the house was really popular. It had a ton of people wanting to see it,
Mm,
despite the eyesore. And I was just I like Scott in his classes says, you be 100% honest. And I was just, there's
mhm,
this horrible collapse house next door before you even go over there. People still wanted to go see it. I listed it with every filler possible that was willing to list it. So it was posted all over the place. And I talked to some other group members who also listed houses themselves and had good luck. So I actually ended up just listing it myself just to get it more exposure. It still took me 3 months to sell it. And the person who bought it asked me to call them on the phone because they were on a bus coming from a different state and they wanted to purchase the house. So I was able to talk to them, and they were like, I don't care if it has a house collapse next door. I want to live there. And I was just so,
interesting.
so surprised. And I was like, okay. So she saw the potential in that home and she wanted it. I didn't do the paperwork. I was really anxious about that because there's different state laws and contracts. And so Josh Heckle was really helpful. He's one of the fillers in our group. When I would find somebody who wanted to tour and was like real serious, despite all the stuff I told them to scare them away, he would take them on a tour. And so he toured her and did the contract and closed on the home.
Wow, wonderful. Would you like to share some numbers? What was the sales price? What was the down payment and your monthly?
Yeah, I believe this one was 2000 down, 7 50 a month, and 69,000.
750 a month for one bedroom? That's that's that's
They're
crazy.
really high in Missouri. Like the rentals
Yeah,
in
I
the
know.
area were like 900 for one bed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
But it took 3 months.
yeah.
Those 3 months must have been hard. But that's what we're trying to understand and explain to people is that there is a buyer for your home.
Yes.
It may not be the first buyer, it may not be the second buyer, it may not be the person who's telling you all the bad things about your home, but there's that right buyer who will actually buy that home, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, next question. Now that it is filled and producing income, what are your lessons learned from buying and filling your first slow flip?
Believe the group, one bedroom, one bath, move a little slower. So my goal after that was to try to aim for 2 and 3 bedroom homes. Those move really fast in
Yep.
comparison. Um, and then it's really helpful to have trusted boots on the ground to go through the home. Like definitely have people go through and look at it, or if you have an agent that you trust, just to make sure you're getting a really good picture of the home. And have multiple exit strategies. There's a lot of fillers in the group who are connected to a lot of different ways to sell your home, so don't lose faith in somebody being able to move the home for you or moving
Perfect.
it yourself.
Perfect. So can you update us? How many slow flips do you have now,
I
and
have
what are your
4.
slow flip goals?
So my goals this year were to get 4. I ended up getting the Buildium platform to get prepped, and it had 4 little slots, and I was able to get
You had
one
to
of
fill
those
them up.
filled. Yeah, so there's a house in each one now. Um,
That
it
feels good.
it does. It's beyond my wildest dreams from like March. Actually find 4 of them and have them all bought, filled, and you know, bringing in rent roll. So very, very amazing, and it's been a really smooth process. I started attending your classes, and you had a lot of really great tips on bedroom sizes, how to search the MLS, how to verify the value worth ARV, because that was all still very new to me. So I highly recommend going back through your videos specifically. With the knowledge I got from taking the newbie slow flip classes, I was able to find a really good agent who was very investor friendly. And right the day that I filled the first one, it took 3 months. I won out another house the same day,
Wow.
which was gone in a week. And during that time, another great house had popped up, and it like while I was closing on this other house that took a month to close, a second house popped up, and I put in like a bid. I didn't think I was going to get it because it was an as is bid, but we had like walked through the house and had inspectors go through it, and we were like, it looked pretty good, and I won. I was like, oh, and then another really great one popped up in the wholesale group. So I suddenly went 1, 2, 3, and then these ones were in Illinois. So I was looking at who the fillers were there, and was able to
Mhm.
talk to Sabrina Gordon, who's like just amazing slow flipper, and
Right.
um, she she has a really good filling network and a really awesome contract, and she got the first like house there sold in a week, and the next 2 sold in less than like 48 hours.
That's
So they
wonderful.
were all just gone. So,
That's wonderful.
yeah.
Great. Okay, so before we take questions, and like I mentioned before, please don't put your questions in the chat. Just raise your hand so I can see it, and I'll call on your questions for our guest. The last question is, anything else you'd like to share about your experience with the audience? A lot of our audience, most of them are newbies.
Yeah, it's pretty intimidating. But we have a really wonderful group of people. Everyone I have messaged has been incredible incredibly friendly, has really good advice, and it's just been such a supportive experience. So anything you don't know, don't be afraid to ask questions and reach out to people. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right. So I don't see any questions yet, but I think people are thinking about questions. So what are your big goals? Like, what are your ultimate number or slow flip number in 5 years? Have you thought of it? Or you're like, man, I'm not even
No,
sure.
I followed Scott's book and I have my whole like list on the wall of all my expenses and what they would
Mm,
cost and what my freedom number would be. So my freedom number is 40 houses because that would
okay, good. Yeah,
100% replace, which is what kind of like a lot of
yeah.
people shakes out to be because I, you know, want to replace both my husband's income and my income, and not like we would necessarily stop working. We both enjoy what we do, but that would give us a lot more freedom in how much we would want to work. So it's 14 houses. Well, it's 7 houses to replace his net income, 14 houses to replace his gross income, and I think for me it was about 28 houses to replace my gross income.
Okay, that's very precise. Awesome.
Yeah, I did all the math. So, and I've got small goals like 5 houses, and then I want to get to 8 houses. So that would be about 10K in net monthly income, which is also life changing. And even like 20K, like, sorry, 20 houses would just be like
Mm,
mind blowingly life changing once they all get paid off. So,
absolutely, absolutely. All right, we have a question. Bradley, go ahead, please. Unmute yourself.
Yeah. Hey, Holly, great starts, and it's always great to hear people's stories as they're just getting started. As am I. I do think it's the story of your first house is still great because I've definitely had some challenges in my real estate journey so far, and so I think it's good to like you got to know that it's just going to happen at some point,
oh yeah.
and you just have to be able to ride it out, and
My friend who like first inspired us, he said, "You are going to make mistakes. It's
yeah.
okay."
Yeah, just do your best to not make ones that are not like financially recoverable at some point.
Exactly. And that's what makes slow flipping nice is if you're just buying like a 20 or $30,000 house, it's pretty recoverable from a lot of angles.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And also, I think it's cool to be able to pivot. I bought one just recently, but I'm actually going down there this weekend because I think I might pivot on it. I think the house is actually worth more in the immediate future if I do a formal flip on it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
um,
Joanne in our group did quite a few flips
yeah,
too because she was finding houses that didn't need very much work and was like, well, hey, this will fund other things.
totally, totally. My question was though, and I think this is an ongoing challenge for everybody, is so you tapped into your home equity. Uh,
Yeah.
what's kind of your plan to move beyond that once that's sort of tapped out? I know like obviously the standard model that we're using is to find a network of private money lenders.
Right.
I personally have not been successful in that
No, I have not
ever yet.
either.
So I
So
just
if there's
want
any private money
to
lenders out there, Brad and Will, you're looking for you.
I get a lot of, I think, I don't know if it was Kelly or somebody else had posted. I get a lot of, you know, stares at me like, what are you talking about? Even my brother over Thanksgiving was like, what are you talking about? Those numbers aren't possible.
Yeah, yeah. It's really fun to kind of discuss it with people and see the looks on their face. And people are just blown away that houses cost this much. Like no one really like knows unless you're in the world. So it's been really interesting breaking into this new world. My goal to grow, I've actually been really closely watching Casey Layfield in our group. She is really smart at like just figuring out where to find more financing. So Tatiana in our group as well, she also just posted recently like how she's been using her own funding to climb.
Yeah.
So it's it's pretty easy to repair credit. There's credit strategies, and my credit was pretty good. I got divorced maybe a decade ago, a little bit longer, and my credit was terrible, and I did repair it. So it was like, over 800. So that does offer personal loans. And then BHG, I actually just got a text message from them. I wanted a business fund, and they said they were going to be able to fund me. So there's several places where you can pull down those loans, and a lot of them are pretty reasonable, like still 7 to 8% interest, which is better than offer market. But we also have offer market. So
Yep.
the main drawback is, like, if you're getting homes appraised, you do have to pay for that process. But Casey was posting recently that she was able to get one of the houses and it had a renter in it, and she was able to go to a local credit union and kind of like doing a mini burr on the home, get it appraised, like, like a $20,000 or $30,000 rental for 50, turn that extra money around into another slow flip. So
Yeah.
she might be able to figure out kind of like a baby burr method for our group. We'll see.
Yeah. No, I think that's very doable, especially if there's the houses are a little bit, a slightly higher price point.
Yeah, if you're finding ones like you did that are such a good ARV, they're almost flippable. It might also be something where you could refi it or fix it up and refi it and get another slow flip.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I was just curious kind of what your strategy is to meet those goals. Cause
Yeah.
and the one danger of the personal loans too is that you're stacking that on your own credit. So
Yeah, and that's why I'm trying to get some business loans.
yeah,
and
yeah.
and so I've been reading about business loans, and like getting to that 10,000K income, a lot more people are willing to give you business loans. And then
Yeah.
I'm also trying to get some business credit cards attached to my LLC so I can start building some business credit.
Cool.
But yeah, so there is more than one way to climb that ladder, even without direct funding from PMLs. It might just be a little bit slower, and there is a good rent roll coming in, so I'm paying down my debt pretty quickly. I that money is for that debt. I don't spend that money elsewhere. So even if I wait 6 months, I'll be able to buy another one. And then if I wait, so I mean, there's nothing wrong with going slow. So I'll still be building a few houses a year if I just aggressively pay stuff down. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing your story. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. If anybody else has a question, just raise your hand so I can see it and I'll call up on you. I see a lot of people join after we did your introduction, so let me do that again. Holly is our guest, who is relatively new, and she has now 4 slow flips, and she's sharing her story and she's answering questions. So if you have any questions for her, just raise your hand so I can call up on you. Holly, let's talk about markets. Now your first slow flip was in St. Louis.
Yes.
What about the other 3? I'm sorry, you might have
mentioned. The other 3 are in Peoria, Illinois. Okay.
Wonderful. Why? Tell, because I'm sure everybody at least are thinking about it. Why did you go to St. Louis first, and then why did you go to Peoria, Illinois? I know it could have been by accident, but people want to know.
No, I I was planning. So we have there were a lot of team members in St. Louis, Missouri. It's a really hot market, and we have a lot of people who fill in St. Louis, and we have a lot of people who wholesale in St. Louis, famously Joey. So I was wanting to be where I felt like I would have the most support. So that's why I chose Missouri as a market. Another popular one across the way, was all the homes that are selling in areas like Alton and, Granite City and Peoria. So the reason I switched markets was, I was looking for homes that were 2 and 3 bedroom, and they were they're more expensive on the Missouri side, and even in some of the more popular areas on the Illinois side. When I was talking to group wholesalers, they said the markets are rising. They've gone up 10K since even like last year. So the houses that were popping up in Peoria looked really nice compared to the same cost houses in Missouri. And I wanted to try my hand at a nicer home that didn't need a lot of work so that I would hopefully fill it and not have a lot of overturn. That was my gamble.
So, so tell people, like, you went and you went to Peoria and you started looking at the homes. Now, I know you were the other three homes also auction, or did you buy some off the MLS, or were they wholesale, the other three?
Yeah. So the first one was group wholesale. The
Right.
second one was my I found one I really liked, and I contacted the real estate agent who was listed, and she was really on top of it and got me on a tour immediately, virtual Zoom tour of the home, and put in my offer. Um, so we ended up closing on that house, and then she also toured the second one that I found really quickly and put in an as-in offer that night. Got it the next day. so,
Wow.
so and then I saw a really good one pop up from Scotty in the available deals, also
Okay.
in Peoria. So I went ahead and claimed that house with a down payment, and we closed on that one as well. So 2 and 2, 50-50 group wholesales and my agent in Peoria.
So, on the property that you bought in Peoria through the agent, was that before the change in the laws for the real estate commission after August, or was it before then?
So I think that would have been is it so which
August 15th or something, I think, if I'm not wrong.
okay. Yeah, I think I would have closed on them after. I know that one of them closed in October, and I think the other ones were in September. So yeah.
So tell me then, I mean, I'm sure it was in the paperwork, but you're dealing with a listing agent, right? She was the listing agent?
Yeah.
Okay. And she didn't have you sign anything other than just the fact that you're buying, the contract and all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Other agents that I had worked with did talk to me about wanting me to sign solely with them. And I didn't do that. And then when I got her, she didn't ask me to do that. She just sold me houses and did the contract, which was lovely.
And that's a learning experience because I recently was dealing with a listing agent, and so I'm directly dealing with her, right? So there's no buyer's agent. I told her that already.
Yeah.
And then she sends me the agreement, and in the agreement there's a clause where she wanted an additional commission. And I said, well, I just made up an excuse, which is a pure, my private lenders do not pay any additional commission other than 6%.
Mhm.
And she immediately removed it, which
Good.
tells me that they are listing agents who are perhaps taking advantage of this confusion in the market,
Mhm.
about the commissions.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so,
How
you know what I'm
that's
saying?
all gotten flipped on its head. Yeah. I was
Yeah,
reading about
so
that.
just be careful on that. And if you don't know, there are actually quite a few licensed agent in our community. You can ask them that question. The commission structure is pretty much the same, I believe, in all 50 states. There might be some other statewide issues, but generally the commission is 6%, and it could be actually negotiated downwards. But this issue of having a buyer's agent is a issue now. Before, it was never an issue. I've bought several properties through buyer's agent, and it was never a problem. Now it's like they won't even show the property, right? They would. So that's one challenge we're going through. All right, so we've just got 4 minutes left. Any last words that you like to add before we end? Holly, thank you so much. But yeah, if you like to add something, please.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here. I am so grateful that you're doing these classes. I was able to ask a lot of questions, and I really appreciate all of your knowledge and that you're willing to come on here and share it with us. It was a really huge part of me being able to secure my last three houses very quickly and very successfully. So thank you personally.
All right, thank you so much, Holly. And thank you everyone for joining us today. We'll be back next week, and you can look at the previous recording on the website URL. If you want to look for that listing, simply search for Newbie Coaching in the forum, and you'll see the original posting, and it has all the links. Thanks everyone. We'll see you all next week. Bye.